Tristan here, back with another video. This actually is going to be tournament breakdown number 3. This one is going to deal with the second TTO Kings of Cowtown Championship Qualifier for 2021. So just a little bit of background for those of you who aren't from Texas. In Texas, there's 3 major regional pro bass fishing tournament circuits. There's Texas Team Trail, some people call it TXTT. There's Bass Champs Texas, and then there's Team Trail Outdoors Texas. Some people call it TTO or TTO Texas. And so this year, the regional pro circuit that we fished, and as I've said in other videos, was TTO, the third one. You know, a few years before, the last 2 or 3 years before this, I fished Bass Champs with my dad, and we had some pretty good tournaments and some pretty bad ones, and you know, that's how it goes, but we did pretty well. And then this was Ian and I's first year fishing together as regional pros, and we decided to fish TTO just because we like the schedule of it a little bit better than we like the Bass Champ schedule. And as y'all know, I've talked about it in other videos, you know, we finished the year, our first season together as regional pros in 20th in AOY, had a super great year, one of our best years ever. And so yeah, TTO does this tournament at the end of every season called the Kings of Cowtown Championship. Basically what it is it's a 2-day event on 3 different lakes. Those lakes are Eagle Mountain Lake in Fort Worth, Lake Worth in Fort Worth, and then Lake Louisville in the Louisville, Texas area. So they do a 2-day tournament on those 3 lakes. The first day you fish Eagle Mountain in the morning, and then Lake Worth in the evening, and then the second day you fish Louisville all day, and then the final weigh-in is at Fun and Sun Boats and Tackle in Hurst. And it's a combined weight of all 3 lakes. You get to catch up to 5 keeper bass in each lake, and your combined weight is your weight for the tournament. Whoever has the highest wins. And so we saw that whenever we started fishing TTO this year, and we thought that it looked like a really interesting format that we'd never seen it before. No other tournament trail that I know of does anything like that. So we knew that we wanted to get to that tournament. That was our main goal for the season, was to qualify for that tournament and make it. It's kind of like, it doesn't go off Angler of the Year standings, but the best way to describe it is basically it's like an Angler of the Year championship. And so how it works is, to qualify, there's 3 chances to qualify in the season. And those 3 events are qualifying events that they do on the lakes that the championship is held on. So the first one was on Eagle Mountain Lake. We didn't go to that one. And then the second one, which is the tournament I'm going to be talking about today, was on Lake Worth in Fort Worth. So there's 3 chances to qualify. The third qualifying tournament's on Lake Louisville. They take the top 10 teams who haven't already qualified from those 3 events, and then the top 30 teams from the years before's Kings of Cowtown Championship automatically re-qualify. And so we decided to fish the Lake Worth one. We didn't fish the Eagle Mountain one because we found out about it a little too late. But we went and fished the second one, the one at Lake Worth. So that's what I'm going to be talking about today. And so basically in that tournament, we had never been to Lake Worth before, ever. I had driven over it a few times back when I used to go to school at Tarleton, and I would drive over it on my way to and from school. And then Ian had seen it just being, you know, working in the area before, but we'd never been on it. I'd always wanted to. Every time I drove over it, it looked super cool. And so I was kind of excited to get to go on it. There's, when you drive over the bridge, it's an interesting lake. You see some grass, some reeds, lots of reeds. You see some docks, and you see some bluffs. It's a really interesting lake. There's a lot to it, and it's really small. So it's kind of neat that it has so much cover for it being such a small lake and in the middle of the city. So we practiced one day, and in that day of practice, we spent all of our time on the middle to southeast section of the lake. We didn't run up super far north because there was a lot of timber up there, and we just didn't know how to run it, and we didn't want to waste time in our one practice day trying to run somewhere we didn't know. So we spent all of our time in the midsection and lower down to the dam, that section of the lake, trying to figure out if there was anything that was going to work for us down there. So, you know, practice started off, it was March 14th of 2021. It was a week after our, April 14th. April 7th of 2021, I believe, actually. My bad. It was April 7th. It was a week after our TTO stop number 2 on Cedar Creek, which was the last video I did. And so we were fresh off of a good finish, 2 good finishes at Fork and Cedar Creek. We had a lot of momentum, we had a lot of confidence, and you know, it's a small lake, so it didn't take me as much time to do the map study, but I still did a complete map study on Navionics and Google Earth of the lake and marked out a bunch of spots. Probably took me about 15 hours to complete the map study between Navionics and Google Earth because the lake was much smaller than most of the lakes in the area. And so I had a plan mapped out, and we went to the lake, and I think it was our first spot. We went to Ian caught about a 5-pounder on a Texas rig, just flipping some reeds with a fence near him in this creek arm. And then we went around back, and we went all the way back to the creek. It's not really a creek, it's just like a little cove, and you can go all the way to the back, and there's like a bluff wall in the back that's kind of cool. And so we went and looked there, and we were like, yeah, this looks good. And then we went and checked a pond that I found that you had to get way back into an actual creek arm to get to, and it's just like this little culvert, and there's this pond there. There wasn't anything in there, unfortunately. And then we ran north to the middle section of the lake, and then it was our last spot actually that we checked in practice. We had on a Texas rig up against this rock point, we had like 3 bites on like 6 or 7 casts, like back to back to back, and then we just left it. We shook them off and we left it because we didn't want to stick a bunch of fish, and that was the best thing we found out to that point. We tried fishing some docks earlier in the day, and they were all like super shallow, and we just didn't have any confidence in them because you could see the bottom and you could see that there was no fish there. So we just decided to do that. It was the same exact pattern basically that we were running at Cedar Creek, where we were fishing seawall points with rock underneath the water up against the seawall that you couldn't see, except for, and this time instead of being out off the point and dragging a Carolina rig and then flipping the deeper docks, we were literally throwing up on the rocks up against the seawall in like a foot or 2 of water. Because it was a little bit later into the season, and we suspected that the bass would be moving closer and closer as time was going on to finally pushing back and spawning. But we knew that they still weren't quite there. They were still pre-spawn for the most part. So that's why we were still fishing those points at the mouths of spawning pockets, basically. And fast forward to the tournament, you know, the night before we're getting ready, and we were like, what do we want to do? I guess we're just going to go to that spot where we shook off 3 fish really quickly, and we'll start there and just see what happens, you know. Because that's all we really have, is that spot and the spot where Ian caught that 5-pounder. But that was the only fish we caught in that spot. So we didn't really know how to feel about anything. We had looked at a few other stuff that looked kind of all right, but we really didn't catch that many fish in practice. So fast forward, we get to the tournament day, and you know, we're all sitting there for takeoff. I think there was like 32 or 33 boats, so not that many. And we took off, and literally our starting spot, that last spot we found in practice, was like right across the lake from the ramp. So we literally ran for like 20 seconds. And if you actually go back on our YouTube channel real quick, if you go back to our first video, that is this tournament. That was the first tournament that we ever filmed and put on YouTube. So you can actually go back and watch that video, and then you can see what I'm talking about. Once I'm done explaining this, you can go back. But that was our first video, was this tournament. And so we shot across the lake. You'll see it. It's literally like 20 seconds to this point. And we get to the point and set up on it, and I think it didn't take very long, maybe my 3rd or 4th cast with a Squarebill right up against the rock. I catch a keeper. So I catch it on a Squarebill, super tight to the rock, super tight to the seawall. It's a good keeper, maybe, I don't know, like a 2-pounder. It's decent enough. Like it's nothing too big, but it's not so small that you had to like put it on the bump board really and check it and be worried about it. It was a good solid keeper. Well, then Ian takes a jackhammer chatterbait and starts throwing it down the side of the rocks and the seawall, and he proceeds to catch 3 more keepers off that spot within the next 20 minutes. So already in the first 25 minutes of the tournament, we have 4 keepers in the box for probably like 8 pounds, something like that. 7.5 pounds. And so we're feeling pretty confident, just because, I mean, that's a lot of action super early in the morning. We would have liked some of them to be bigger, but it felt good to already have, you know, 4 of the 5 fish we need in the well that early in the morning. So then we kind of fish around there for a little bit longer and nothing's really happening. So we zoom down to the spot where Ian caught that 5-pounder in practice. We fish around in there, we don't get bit. When we come out and there's a point and there's another arm right next to it, well, that point, we kind of go around it and I throw a chatterbait down the side of the point. This one has a bunch of rock along the seawall too, and it's got some docks on it. I throw my chatterbait, I pick up a jackhammer, and I sling it up underneath the corner of it, between a dock post and the wall and the rock, and I catch our biggest keeper of the day. Is probably like a 2.5 pounder, 2.5, 2 3/4 pounder. And so that fills our limit. So at that point, we're super excited. But we have one fish that Ian caught on a chatterbait at the first spot that is so close that we're a little worried about it, maybe potentially not being long enough to keep. So we know that we have to keep trying and keep grinding it out, and at least at the very minimum cull that fish. But you know, if we can cull more, then obviously that's preferred. So then we go, you know, probably 3 hours, 3.5 hours, where we just either aren't catching them in every spot we try, or we find, you know, a stretch of docks and we catch an absolute, you know, a lot of fish, a pile of them, but none of them are keepers. None of them are big, and we have to throw them back. And we did that for about 3.5 hours, where we would pull up to a spot and not catch anything, or we pull up to a spot and catch 30, but they'd all be like this big, or they'd be like tiny spotted bass. And those fish we were catching on a Texas rig. So finally, we're like, we gotta think of something else. Let's go run back down to the spot where you caught that 5-pounder in practice one more time and see if we can't, you know, pull something big out of that. We go down there and we're working our way all the way to the back of it, and we look to our left and there is a fish on a bed in the corner of the very back of this pocket. And so it didn't take long. I think it was only like the second pitch it bit it and we missed it. And then maybe like the 4th or 5th pitch, Ian pitched back in there and the fish bit it and got it good, and Ian set the hook. And it was a good 2-pounder, and it pulled out that little tiny fish that we were worried about. So that was the last keeper that we caught in the tournament. We were super excited because, like I said, we pulled out that really small one that we were worried about, and we were able to have a little bit more confidence going into weigh-in. Weigh-in rolls around, we get there, and we're weighing in, and I think we had like 10.5 pounds, maybe 10 3/4, almost 11 pounds on 5 fish. So not terrible, but you know, not anything too great. It's Texas, you know, there's big bags, and the guys who won the tournament, I think they had like 23 pounds. There was a few bags in the teens and a few bags in the 20s. And so we knew we had to be in the top 10 to qualify, and we were really upset because we didn't think we had it. We didn't think that we qualified. But we were just sticking around the weigh-in to see kind of what they would say. And it turns out that 5 teams that ended up inside the top 10 of the tournament had already qualified either at the first qualifying event of this year, or from being in the top 30 of last year's championship event. So had they not been there, we would have placed 9th out of the teams who had not qualified. So we ended up 14th in the tournament out of like 32 or 33 boats, and we did qualify. We qualified for the Kings of Cowtown Championship, and we were so happy to have qualified for it in our very first attempt at qualifying for it. It really took that weight off our shoulders of having to try and struggle and fish that 3rd qualifying event and that final one. It just was like the weight had been lifted off our shoulders, and it felt really nice. So we were super happy that we qualified for that already, and we couldn't wait to fish it. But real quick, so the baits that we caught them on, like I said, the pattern was we were just fishing the same thing that we fished at Cedar Creek, rocky seawall points at the mouth of spawning pockets, and anytime there was a dock on them or an irregularity in the rock, you'd throw up on it, except for this time, instead of fishing in like 3 to 10 foot of water, we were fishing literally 6 inches to 3 feet of water. We were just fishing a little bit shallower on those points and down the sides of them a little bit more. And the water was kind of off colored. You could see down like 1.5 foot, but it had this weird like cloudy, milky stain. I don't really know how to describe it. So everything we were throwing, the Texas rig baits we were throwing was a purple and brown PB&J rage craw, and a green pumpkin purple. Ian was throwing a green pumpkin purple bandito bug from Guggenbaits, and that's what he caught that male bedfish on. That called out our pipsqueak fish. And then we were throwing chatterbaits. I was throwing, it's called, I don't remember the name of the color, but it's got a watermelon red. The head of it is like a chrome. It's got a gold blade. The bottom of the head is chrome. The top of the head is gold. And then the skirt has 3 layers. The top layer is like a gold color. The middle layer is like watermelon red. And then the bottom layer is like a white and chrome chartreuse, or chrome, like metal shad style color. And then I just had a white swim bait trailer on the back of it. Ian was throwing just like a white chartreuse jackhammer with a white swim bait trailer as well. And then the Squarebill I was throwing was a KVD rattling 1.5 Squarebill and a chartreuse sexy shad until I lost it. But I wanted to show you guys my Squarebill setup really quick. In the last 2 tournament breakdown videos at Fork and Cedar Creek, I broke down my Texas rig setup and my chatterbait setup. But I haven't broken down a Squarebill setup yet because I haven't had the opportunity to break down the tournament where I used it. So I'm going to break down my Squarebill setup real quick for you guys so you can see it. This is not the Squarebill I was using in that event. Like I said, I was using a KVD rattling 1.5 in the chartreuse sexy shad color. This is just the Squarebill I've been recently throwing based on the season. But yeah, basically just a 1.5 size Squarebill in a chartreuse sexy shad color. I switched the stock hooks on all my crankbaits to Mustad KVDs, the short shank ones, the Elite triple grit trebles. It's just, they're the best hooks on the market in my opinion, and it's a confidence thing. I've had several opportunities ripped from me throughout my career as a bass angler, tournament bass angler, because of bad stock hooks on crankbaits. So I just switch all my not even crankbaits, all my hard baits. Jerk baits, rattle traps, crankbaits, top waters, I switch them all to Mustad KVDs. The line I'm using, I always, when I'm cranking, I use 12-pound Seagar and Vizex. That is my staple. Sometimes I'll use 10-pound if I'm trying to get the baits a little bit deeper, but most of the time I use 12-pound. The rod is the Denali Lithium series. It's their crankbait Squarebill stick. It's a 7-foot medium heavy moderate action. It's the L843CB. And then the reel I'm using is the Ardent Sea-Force reel. It's one of their cranking reels. Super awesome reel. It's in the 6:3-to-1 gear ratio. This thing will cast a Squarebill a mile, and it has the power to crank a Squarebill all day and not wear you out and wrench those big fish in when they hit it. So that is the setup. It's pretty simple. 6:3-to-1 gear ratio reel, 7-foot medium heavy moderate action rod, 12-pound fluorocarbon, and a crankbait with some good hooks. Super, super easy. One of the most effective but yet most simple setups you can use in bass fishing, especially in the spring and fall. So that is how we caught them and what we caught them on. You know, it was a fun tournament, like I said. We were glad that we were able to qualify for that championship event in our first attempt. And we appreciate y'all watching. I know recently we've really been pushing these tournament breakdown videos and haven't put out a lot of fishing content. I promise you we have more fishing content coming. We've just been real busy at school with school and work and internships, and it's kind of our off season right now. So we just got done with tournaments like a month ago. So we're taking care of a lot of stuff with the fishing team here at the school. So we've just been kind of busy and taking time to ourselves. But I promise you, I filmed a pond hopping video the other day, and then I'll be putting that out soon, and then I'll be putting out the rest of these tournament breakdown videos until we get the whole 2021 season covered. And some of our tournament breakdown videos that'll be later in the year will actually have clips from the tournaments in them. So it'll be a mixture of breaking down the tournament plus a little bit of fishing footage for y'all. But yeah, like I said, this was our third tournament of the 2021 season, but it was actually the first one we filmed because we didn't have the GoPro yet for the first 2. So if y'all want to see the fishing footage for this tournament, go back to the first video on our channel and check it out. We appreciate the support. Please like and subscribe if you feel like you want to do that, and we'll see y'all on the next one. Thank you.